How's everybody going? Wow, going. How is everybody doing? I cannot talk right now for some reason. So I have this new gimbal. I think it's called a gimbal. It's kind of cool. A little bit of an upgrade. Anyways, if you haven't already, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate you guys. This is our conversation tonight. Um, don't know how long I'll be on here this time. Just wanted to do a little bit of talking. Main reason I wanted to talk about is I'm kind of curious how people feel about the whole entire LA situation and protests in general. In my hometown, there was some protests there, and it wasn't when it comes to protests, depending on the cause and who is organizing the protests, you can see a much bigger outcome compared to what I saw today. Today I saw a very small outcome. But it's just the fact that I do see people across the United States having an issue with what's going on in Los Angeles and the deportations in general. And I want to give my opinion on the deportations. America is not unfamiliar with deportations. It has happened a lot. There was a creator I saw on TikTok who's pretty popular, who was not of Hispanic or Mexican descent, who was deported, her family, but they came back. And that's the other thing I have a question about. If the country that you are at is deporting you, why do you continue to keep coming back? That's the thing I'm kind of curious about more than anything else. Um, but the one thing this may sound like a little bit of um, head canon, in my opinion. I'm not going to use the other word because the other word gets flagged a lot. But head canon, in my opinion, about the situations going on, I really don't think it's as bad as it really is. I really do think there is a lot of uh, plants in these protests are making things a lot worse than what it really is. Because if you're protesting to stay here, why would you do the thing that would get you deported? That would justify deportation. You see what I mean? That doesn't make any sense. So why would you go somewhere and protest and say you have a right to stay here, but then go around throwing rocks at officers and blowing up cars or lighting stuff on fire or looting, etc.? At least that's the stuff that they're showing. It doesn't make any sense to me. To me, I feel like that's a lot of people that are implanted to cause a lot of disruption that's not really there. Because especially what's kind of weird about it too, on top of that, you see them flying the Mexican flag, but you don't show their face. Hey, John, hello, Tristan, hello. They're not showing their face, right? So you see about a bunch of people committing some crimes that's not showing their face, flying the Mexican flag, that's trying to stir up more discourse. I don't think that's what it is because I've been to plenty of protests in my life. You normally don't see that kind of extreme stuff. In fact, the majority of protests I've been to have been very peaceful for the most part. Even the George Floyd protests were extremely peaceful that I went to. So for this, it doesn't make any sense at all. But again, that's just my opinion on the situation. I truly do feel like that they're being set up. Now, do I believe that people should be deported that are committing crimes? Yes. Do I think there are people that should be deported that is not here legally? 100%. But to have this narrative out there that in my heart is telling me is not true, I can't rock with that. And I feel like the main reason they want to get black people in particular so involved in these protests, so they kind of lump us all in together and use that as justification to pass more laws. Again, that's just my opinion of it. And hello, Tris, I do what you meant, man. That's just my opinion of it. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't make any sense. And Trump deploying the National Guard to Los Angeles also doesn't make any sense to me because, in my opinion, right? The military in general is supposed to defend the American people from the enemies of America. When you're deploying the military on American citizens, that means the American citizens are the enemy of the state. Does that make any sense what I'm trying to say? I mean, if the military is used to fight people that could potentially harm America, seeing it to people that's not doing any good at all. Again, that's just my opinion of it. I know it's not very popular, but it is what it is, though. Um, it's just all out of order, and it's so weird. It's so weird seeing all of this all of a sudden. Now, I kind of want to hear other people's opinion on it. And again, if you're new, subscribe and comment. I appreciate it or like it. But I mean, how do other people feel about this? I know whenever I do these lives a lot of the time, in general, you get people from all over, not just in the States for the most part, right? So I just kind of want to know other people's opinions on how they view America too when they come to them seeing these kind of protests. When you see these actions on the news, I'm pretty sure it's seen all over the world. And also, let's say if you had Americans in your country, and would you be okay with the things you've seen on the news? I don't know. I'm just asking questions that I'm just thinking about out loud because realistically speaking, all this doesn't make any sense. Anyways, yeah, America's been a lot different lately, but it's all good though. It's all good. You gotta go through the hard times to get to the good, right? There's always a balancing act. So you're gonna go down a hill of badness and then slide up or go up the good hill, the roller coaster, I guess you'd say is a better analogy. You're gonna go down and go up. It's just what it is, and then eventually you're gonna plateau out. But I really do feel like a lot of these acts in Los Angeles are not perpetrated by the people that say they are. I think they're plants by the government. And it's not just in Los Angeles. There's other things too that I feel like that are a lot more are shown a lot more now that Trump is in office. Um, yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, there's a lot of groups that are out there that are hiding their face, getting away with stuff. I remember I saw a video of these protests that a lot of supremacist groups were doing, and they got away with it, even being loaded up in the back of a U-Haul truck, which is illegal in itself. But I don't know. But back to the topic of the whole entire Mexico thing, the so quote unquote illegals. I'm under the opinion that their standard law should have been there. If you're doing stuff illegal, get deported. You know what I find very interesting though? You got people who do stuff illegal that don't get deported, or this cause trouble. They just don't get deported. Uh, I know this is not a very popular opinion, but I remember when Justin Bieber, which is a Canadian citizen, he was causing all kinds of havoc, and he never got deported. Whenever he was going through his art shows, this is before people put two and two together that he was going through the stuff with Diddy or whatever. But I remember he was like, peeing in mop buckets, just causing destruction, all kind of stuff. He never got in trouble, and I remember the excuse they gave back then was that he employs a lot of people, so if he was deported, that would be a lot of lost revenue. I thought that was kind of ridiculous that he just kind of got away with a lot of the BS he did. And people say, "Well, yeah, he was hurt. He was taken advantage of." So what? I mean, if you want to apply the law evenly, just because you're a rich white Canadian doesn't give you the excuse to do stuff he did. And so far, these people are just being deported, and there's no real conviction. And by the way, what is the benefit of you reporting somebody to ICE? I really want to know that. What is the benefit of you reporting somebody to ICE? I have a serious question about that because if you report somebody to ICE, do you get like a finder's fee, kind of like Crime Stoppers, or do you just have that much, you know, hate in your heart that you just want to go ahead and report everybody you see? So here's the thing, though. Since this stuff's been going on, since Trump's been elected, I'm in Florida. They've been cracking down on that stuff in Florida too. Um, I don't know where America is going. Like in Florida, right? They are building all these fancy looking apartment complexes from left and right, gentrifying old neighborhoods, building all these condos and duplexes and apartments, and not anybody's filling them up. And what ends up happening is that whenever you have a nice apartment, duplex, whatever, eventually it starts off nice and peaceful. Then what ends up happening eventually? It gets turned into a ghetto. So whenever I see all these very nice apartment complexes, duplexes that are like, 8 stories tall and it have a gated fence on it and whatever, eventually they turn to ghettos. They turn to projects, they turn to hoods. So you get these people that can't afford this stuff. And you get these people that's going government assistance that's going to lose it eventually too. And what's going to end up happening? They're going to lower their standards to the people that most likely shouldn't be there. I won't say not shouldn't be there, but couldn't afford to be there normally. And there's going to be a element introduced into it, either by the community or outside means. And then you just have a bunch of uh, popularized ghettos, future ghettos all over the place. Because you got to think about it. Even if you look at the show Snowfall, I really appreciate that show. And the reason I appreciate Snowfall, it showed before the the white powder epidemic happened. Those neighborhoods were very nice. The community was beautiful. It was peaceful. And then the white stuff got introduced, and then the baked white stuff got introduced, and then what ended up happening? It turned to dangerous ghetto neighborhoods. So who's to say this won't happen to all these 8-story apartment complexes? They'll have hundreds of people in one location that can introduce that stuff or something worse. And then all the people who may have given up their homes or just moved down here and sold their homes to people that couldn't afford it, that's going to be lost by the banks eventually. Then going to be tore down. And anyways, I kind of getting off the top of the original top of the video I had on here. But I guess to bring it all back together is that if you're getting rid of the people, that could help make things more affordable, because whether you like it or not, generally speaking, most of construction work is done by Hispanic people. That's why it's good to keep them in one place. Exactly. Exactly. Um, and I'll tell you a story about a neighborhood that I grew up near not too long ago. But actually, I'll go ahead and tell it now. I remember when I was younger, there was this one neighborhood apartment complex, very big. It was beautiful at one point in time back in the 70s, according to my parents. It was a very nice place, but eventually it got the epidemic enter into it, right? And there was only one way in, one way out, and then it got really bad. And when it got bad, what they ended up doing was kind of like in prisons, the razor wire on the outside of it. They put wire on the outside of it so people could run and escape and hop over the fence. It got so bad too. I literally seen people, well, I don't say people, I saw a person got caught up in that razor wire before. So essentially it turned into a prison. And who was the primary people in that old nice neighborhood? People my color. So it anyways, if you guys are watching, go ahead and like and subscribe. I appreciate it. But yeah, and that's just me talking on that. That I think that Trump should go ahead and just leave Los Angeles alone, stay out of California. I feel like this is more one of these things that he's looking for a win in his administration, and he's jumping the gun. and him jumping the gun in this area is making him look a lot worse than he already does. In other words, he's doing too much, or the kids would say he has too much dip in his chip. He needs to back off. Let the mayor and governor figure it out. If they need help, they know how to ask for help. They haven't even given an opportunity to do anything. Trump just hop in there and they started doing stuff left and right that doesn't make any sense. Speed bump on trees. Yeah, that too. Big speed bumps. You can't even leave a place and have police cars patrolling the area. It's crazy. Um, yeah, but that's not really want to talk about that. I kind of want to get into the YouTube beefs too, because you know what the YouTube beefs. There was recently this thing in Las Vegas that happened where two streamers got into it and they unalived them. Well, uh, the Hispanic streamer, I hate to say it that way, but the Hispanic streamer unalived the black streamer and his wife. And I say it in that way in particular because I could see them using that scenario to help push the agenda of getting more Hispanics out of here, which doesn't make sense to me. I mean, race shouldn't have played a part in that, but when we look at the comments, people who review that situations, yes, the situation in Las Vegas, um, it doesn't make any sense. It makes sense in a way, and I'll tell you why it makes sense to me. You cannot go around talking about somebody's wife and family, right? So the person who did the online was named Sin City, if I remember correctly. Sin City made blogs, and he wasn't the best guy, obviously. I didn't watch too much of his content, but from the clips I did see, he was kind of just whatever. Um, but I never seen YouTube beefs go this far to where the other person, I can't think of his name right now, he had like wait 3,000 subscribers maybe. He made his whole entire channel talking about that man and his wife. So if you're talking about somebody damn near every day, pulling up pictures of him, making fun of him, and he made fun of him and stuff that cool. Whenever you put yourself out on the internet, you know you're going to be made fun of. You know somebody's going to talk bad about you. That's just what it is. Whenever you're trying to be a public figure, that's part of the price of getting that public figure money. You're going to be talked about. People are going to make hate videos about you. That's just what it is. But whenever you start attacking his wife, that's a moment that went too far in a lot of people's minds, because there are a few lines that people won't care. You know, they say, hey, don't talk about my women, don't talk about my kids. You're gonna talk about me, that's cool. And it'll fully go crazy. You talking about their family. Now, do I believe Sin City was justified in taking that man's life and his wife's life? No, not at all. However, though, I can't understand as a man that you only could take so much when somebody's talking about your family and people that you love. The unfortunate part is he let his ego get in a way so badly to the point that now he will never be able to see his wife anymore. That is the dumbest thing ever. That is just stupid. Now I can understand if you just would have went up to the guy and punched him. Cool. You may have did like 30 days in jail or something. But to pull out a pew pew and unalive him, and not only him and his wife, come on, man. I get it. You got tired of the man talking crap about you. You got tired of the man making money off of you. Because let's be real, people were sending him super chats for the smack he was talking, which I thought was pretty interesting. He may have felt like, hey, he was hindering his career. I get that too. But the thing that you was trying to protect, you don't have anymore. Uh-oh. Oh. Yeah, sorry, I got a new gimbal thing. Trying to I was trying to extend it up, but so I could put it on the floor. You know what? That's as good as it's going to get them. And you're right. It is very sad for both sides. They lost their families, they lost their money, lost their reputations, everything you worked hard for. Because let's be real here, building a career or a side hustle off this is hard. It's emotionally hard. It takes a lot of time and dedication. If you don't have a team, then this takes a lot of your time and day most of the time. If you do regular content videos, just like a regular live streamer. Why can't I get this thing to rise up higher? I know I could. Yeah, the world, I don't think the world necessarily going to get worse. I think the world, is truthfully, in my honest opinion, is exactly where it's always been. It's always been bad. It's always had a lot of trouble with it. It's just the only thing is that we have cameras in our hands right now, high definition cameras, that we can capture all this stuff now. Think about it. If people in the 60s and 70s had cameras, and even in the early 80s, and they had camera phones, high definition camera phones, just imagine how much stuff they would have caught back then. That's why I don't think the world is not necessarily getting worse. I think the world is exactly where it's always been. We just have more footage of it now. Also, if you are new, go ahead and subscribe and comment. I appreciate you. Thank you. But yeah, it's exactly where it is. It's exactly where it's going to be. And if you have a relationship with your grandparents, you know how world of bad was. If you have a relationship with your parents, still you know how bad the world was. Hell, you can go to libraries, look at old news articles, and see how bad the world was. This is going to annoy the hell out of me that I cannot get this thing pulled up. And that's a little higher. Anyways. Let's see. Side both sides. Anyways, yeah, that's just how I felt about the whole entire Las Vegas thing. It was just dumb on all sides. In those times, people did stick together until somebody broke them apart. That's why I really liked the movie, The Judas and the Black Messiah, right? Everybody stuck together until they are betrayed. That's the crazy part, right? The government will always find a way to break something positive apart. The government fears unity amongst races. And I always felt like that they fear unity amongst races because if they keep us all divided and hating each other, then they will. It's easier for them to control us because they can use us to police us. So if you have, for example, Hispanic and Black people beefing against each other, then that's less effort they have to do. They don't got to worry about them coming together and forming their own political party or government or movement or towns or something along those lines. And I brought up all that stuff because there's a long lost history of. I know more about Black history because I'm a Black male personally, but Black towns that have built themselves up, had their own communities, their own courthouses and governments and post offices, things of that nature that were torn down, burnt down for whatever reasons, or buried underneath water. Um, and a lot of times it had accusations of some white person for the most part. I'm not too sure about the Hispanic community, if I'm going to be really honest with you, because their history is not as prevalent when it comes to America. Even though I know there were some here, this wasn't as strong as it is now. So yeah, same thing with Native American history too. Um, it's just not as strong as it is. I mean, it's kind of hard, if you really think about it. Who had it? Let me start over. If you really think about it for a second, I am very surprised that somehow the government has convinced Black people and Native Americans to go against each other. That is like the craziest thing if you really think about it. Because, you know, Native Americans, if you're going to be really honest, they were deceived. This is going on now in time. Yeah. So Native Americans, they were deceived. They were, you know, uh, they were taken advantage of in a physical way their women were. And they had their land stolen from them. And at one point in time, it was always like that. There were a lot of mixtures when it came to Native Americans, making Native American tribes and Black people. A lot of us worked together in harmony, and but yet somehow, well, actually, I actually understand how, because whenever, and this is just like the long game, the government will normally play, or the rich people will normally play. If they know they cannot defeat you outright without taking too many casualties, they will try to interbreed with you. And that's what they did with a lot of Native Americans when they realized they had land, they had a lot of resources, so they couldn't necessarily just wipe them out again. So what they ended up doing was they just uh, mixed their blood with them over and over and over again until it was pretty much whitewashed, and then you'll see that people who are claiming to be Native American don't even look it. They pass laws that you can have a very small percentage to take advantage of all these systems in place for them. It's crazy. Hey, thank you for subscribing. Check out some of my other videos too. I do a lot of traditional videos, not just lives. It's just that sometimes, like I said, if you do traditional videos and if you do a good amount of research on it, it takes a lot of work. Like, I work a regular job, 8+ hours. Then I try to do my YouTube stuff, and that could take 4 to 8 hours because I gotta do my own thumbnails and research and things of that nature. I would say one of my videos I'm most proud of is one I did on Kanika Jenkins. I'm not sure if you remember that case. It was a young Black woman that was found unalive in a freezer. I think in Detroit, or was it Chicago? It was one of them. I can't remember right now. And the main reason I brought that video back up was because the police came out with a confession that didn't make any sense. Because when you look at the police confession they released this year, it didn't match the autopsy report at all. And I was pointing out a lot of inconsistencies with that. But yeah, but some of my videos are quick, some will kind of just like spur the moment. Some I do some research on. It just really depends on how much time I do. So go ahead and check them out. I appreciate it if you do. But back what I was saying, it's just the craziest thing is Native Americans and Black people having beef with each other. That one will never make sense to me. It never will. Because, at first, Black people and Native American got along very, very well. It was a very strong, tight unit. Um, I would never understand why people would side with someone that stole their land, stole their women, stole their resources, and then told them, hey, those people you used to get along with over there, used to help you out, used to build with, they're the enemy. I don't know how they convinced us of that. I really don't. Just think about it. If Native Americans and Black people really came together, that'll be something unstoppable, because you can't really kick Native Americans out of America. They're native, right? You can't get rid of Black Americans because we're down there native here too. So it's one of those things that would take over a lot. Combine that with Hispanics who were technically here in America before a lot of us were. I mean, yeah, they did lose. Yeah, they did lose a war, which had them lose the land and all this other kind of stuff. But all of California, New Mexico, Arizona, etc., all that was belonging to them at first. So I'm just saying those three groups came together, and even the Asians too, because you really think about it, Asians were brought over and was used to do slave labor on railroads. So if you really think about it, we all have a reason to come together against a common, I won't say enemy, but um, a common threat. If you really think about it for a second, if you truly do, the only thing is, I always felt like they felt like black people are more of a threat than anybody else because no matter how much you put us through, we always tend to rebuild, come together, and then somehow we always get taken out by a false accusation. And never mind the fact that there was um, the erased history, like the Gullah Geechee Wars. I won't say that's necessarily erased history, but it was just a history that was just not talked about, right? Because a lot of the times, and this is why I don't like watching slave movies. In general, I just don't like watching slave movies, and the main reason being is because they always depict Black Americans as sobbing on our knees, crying, all that other kind of stuff. But in reality, there were a lot of rebellions, and like I said, the Gullah Geechees were damn near guerrilla fighters that was putting it to America to the point it was at a standstill at one point in time. That it's just kind of gets to the point to where it's just like they really just have us distracted with BS. And that's why I don't like a lot of modern music, modern entertainment. That's why I've never been a fan of Dr. King. Um, because if you want to be really honest with you with Dr. King, in my personal opinion, I feel like he did more harm than good. I really do. And the reason I feel like he did more harm than good, now I'm a big fan of Malcolm. I'm a big fan of Malcolm X. But the reason I always felt that Dr. King did more harm than good, because he pushed so hard for integration. And whenever we integrated, we lost a lot of control and autonomy of ourselves. I even lost a lot of our story and history. Um, Whenever we try to integrate into spaces that we're not welcome and we're not wanted, there's always that old saying, never invite yourself to the party, right? If you're not being invited, that means you're not really wanting to be there. You never invite yourself. Us pushing for integration was us inviting ourselves to the party, and that's something we should have never done. A lot of the a lot of the we lost a lot of the narrative. We lost a lot of control. We lost a lot of sense of selves when we integrated because they controlled our story at that point. They truly did control our story. They can put out on the news every 5 minutes. Oh, black male robbed store. They can put on the news. Black male ran from police and things got violent. Black male domestic violence. Yada yada yada. However, though, they'll tend to skip a lot of the white stories. Now it's intentional by design. And the reason I even say that, even in modern day, Candace Owens, um, Candace Owens, I don't like her, but I respect her. And the main reason being is because whenever she started questioning other religious groups, um, they tried to get her fired. They did get her fired from, what was it, the Daily Report she was on, and suppressed. And when she came out from there, she even said that she was strongly encouraged to push negative black stories, right? And they do that a lot with the black women or black appearing women. And I'll get into a minute why I say black appearing women when I talk about Candace Owens. But with black women in general, they will take down, or just black men or black people in general, they'll take down the people who are willing to uh, say whatever, do whatever for a check or clout or fame, and push out these negative stories. And it's like, hey, it's not the white people saying this. It's not them saying this, but however, though, it is your own people saying this. Never mind the fact that that wasn't her show at the time, but she was being pushed out to say this stuff. And that's the kind of stuff I'm just like, all right. So whenever she actually left, I think what was it, Daily Wire, Daily Report, whatever that show was, she started going after more other people, a lot of white people. She started talking more about um, the French president. Is it the French president and his wife, who might be his father-in-law or father or something? It was some weird, crazy stuff. She started talking about more stuff like that, right? And I was like, okay. And the reason I said earlier, black appearing women, and main reason because Candace Owens is not a um, black American. I think I can't remember if she's Haitian or Jamaican. She's from one of the islands, right? And what I know is not all the time, but a lot of the time, what they'll do is they'll get these people that have black skin but don't have the black history and the black story, prop them up and have them push out an agenda or story, right? And people not knowing that person's background, they'll be like, oh, okay, well, hey, it's your own people saying this about you, even though they got popularized by taking advantage of their skin or black culture. And other reason I say why Candace got I took advantage of that because when she was younger, it's well known now how she won a discrimination lawsuit to help with the NA no NA is it NACCP? Yeah, she used them as a resource to help win her discrimination lawsuit, which a lot of people said she was rightfully discriminated against. But again, you can't criticize black people, not know our history, and push their agenda, and that's the thing I don't like. And that goes back into what I was saying earlier, much earlier, that a lot of these people that migrate or immigrate here, um, they get here and they talk about the people who are native to the land that's been here for hundreds of years, and that doesn't make any sense. Don't sit here and do that. Don't come here and just pretty much take a dump on the people that paved the way to have you uh, be able to do the things you're doing today, right? I mean, think about that for a second. Candace Owens would not have her job now if it wasn't for Black Americans and the sacrifices we made. Kai Cenat would not be popularized if it wasn't for Black Americans and the culture that he imitates. Because I still remember he made that comment about Black Americans don't have a culture. But if you really think about it, American culture is Black culture. And I'll say it again, that American culture is Black culture. So if people don't like to acknowledge that, I mean, hell, country music, Black. Um, a lot of the most popularized foods that are known, Black. Southern Black mostly. Um, Style, Black. It's even funny because um, I remember there was a story that people were talking about. What's her name? Kylie Jenner. Yeah, Kylie Jenner. She was wearing a wife beater, right? And they were saying how stylish it was, but black people were wearing those forever. But whenever we were wearing them back in the day, it made it seem like it was something that was, ghetto and lazy and whatever else. But whenever a Caucasian white woman put that on, it's like the best thing ever. Yeah, blues, jazz, country music, all that's Black. Athleticism. I mean, you can go watch old videos of basketball before when it was segregated, and you'll see how much of a culture show black people add to that. So it's always been one of those things that America wouldn't be popularized as it is if it wasn't for black people. And then we get copied by everybody in the whole entire world, but yet they still somehow want to believe that there's no such thing as black culture, black American culture. I mean, come on, man. And it's not me hating on people who may not willfully know that, but I will say this. If you come here and make millions, maybe show some respect to the people that help you make those millions, indirectly or directly. I just never liked that. I never like hearing people who are from like the islands come here and talk shit, or people from Africa that come here and talk shit. I'm just like, I always think to myself whenever they do, I'll say, well, how come you just didn't make those changes in your country? I mean, you just want to ignore every single sacrifice that the Black Americans has made here. So why not just go do it in your country? See how easy it is. Hell, you got a man over there trying to fight a war against the world, essentially. God, I can't think of his name right now. Who pretty much kicked out the French out of his country? Who's making electric cars that are better looking than Teslas? And God, what is his name? Is Ikambu? Shit, I'm embarrassed. I can't think of his name right now. The man always wears a uniform, and he's just awesome. He is striving for change, but instead of getting support, what do people do? They talk crap about him, his own people. But back to what I was saying earlier, why I never really cared for Malcolm, because whenever he pushed for integration, he hurt our individuality. However, though, the reason I always been a fan of Malcolm, because Malcolm was always say like, "Hey, we gotta build our own stuff, defend ourselves. They come for us, we come for them." He didn't preach that whole entire that forgiveness crap. Forgiveness does not get you respect. You can get forgiveness after eye for eye has been done. Hmm. Yeah, that's just my opinion of it. I know when I get on my whole entire, black empowerment, uh, black movement, a lot of people don't like to hear that. But I'm a black American male. I have endured this American system my whole entire life. I have seen benefits and I have seen a whole lot of BS that comes along with it. And it's just the older you get, the um the older you get, you get more frustrated when you see people talk down on you and your people. It really frustrates you. And whenever you have Malcolm gave people, help people develop their own self confidence, their own identity, to make sure we knew who we were. King, he, he I'm not going to talk too bad on King because he did make a lot of sacrifices. He did do a lot of good. But the fact that we have King for a holiday and not Malcolm shows, it shows how much damage he really did. They're not going to celebrate somebody and give a holiday to somebody that they didn't benefit from. Keep that in mind. I'll say it again. King gets a holiday because the powers that be benefited from him and his actions. He thought he was doing good, but he wasn't. And I'll say it again. He didn't do everything bad or wrong, but you do not get a holiday if they didn't benefit from your actions. Christopher Columbus gets a holiday. Horrible human being, right? Horrible human being. The things he did is just crazy. It was hidden very well for a long time. But he got a holiday. Why? Because they benefited from it. How many slaves did he send back to Europe? How many lives did he take? I'm just saying, Washington, he had a lot of slaves. He had over 100 slaves. But yet, I don't know. I don't know. You don't get a holiday unless they benefit from it. So they're not able to keep use you to keep them in power. You don't get a holiday. And that's just my opinion of it. And you know what? I'll go a little further. Yeah, he did. He did use the slaves to navigate to America. It's so funny if you really think about it. That there was an old statement they said back in the day that, I'm trying to think of the exact phrasing. White people are not creators; they are imitators, right? So, and not just the whole entire navigate the what was it? Lois and Clark had a slave with them. They had to navigate to get to California, if that's what you're talking about. Because Lois and Clark was the ones that navigated through that whole entire area. And they were aware of land and money, and all the slave wanted was just his freedom. And they wouldn't even give him that. America wouldn't be here without a black man that helped navigate America. They couldn't even give him freedom. And they sure do know how to use you, right? They know how to use you to get what they want. When it's time to pay, though, they won't give you shit. They won't give you a damn thing. Everybody knows about Lois and Clark, though. They think they navigated out those wildlands and forests by themselves. And let's be real here. Not this navigation. That black slave probably saved their lives because he was more familiar with that kind of environment. You know, one of the most powerful things that they took away from us is our spiritual beliefs. Sorry, I just noticed like a lot of dust right here. I need to get this cleaned off. But one of the most powerful things they took away from us is our spiritual beliefs. And you know, I've been noticing a lot more recently now they're trying to use it. I'll give you an example. You know, back in the day, hoodoo and voodoo was seen as a very uh, demonized, devilish religion and belief, right? Even though hoodoo, I don't know too much about voodoo, but I do more know a little bit more about hoodoo because of family and stuff. But from my understanding of hoodoo, that they always just use that for at least the people in my family were used to heal, right? It was used for healing. You know, you could hear about cleanses and you know protections and goodwills. Even the interesting thing about hoodoo is that it got incorporated into some of the modern Bible, like in Psalms and stuff like that. But yet, they made it seem like that was a very demonic, evil thing to where we wouldn't do it anymore. All the while, white people would practice that behind the scenes. So much so to the point that you have white people publishing books on hoodoo and voodoo, even though that's not their culture or beliefs. So they will steal it from us, make us hate it, hate ourselves, but then turn around and try to resell it to us. Like what? And that's the craziest part about it. This go on, if you ever get bored one day, this go on Amazon, right? And it's type in like hoodoo or voodoo books. And look at the offer of the books and see what skin color they are. The vast majority of them are gonna be white. Not white passing, is full on white. I don't know. It's just crazy how they'll call us savages and all this other kind of stuff. You know, we're dumb and all this other kind. We're lazy, but yet we helped build America. We pretty much did build America. They'll take our beliefs and use it against us because if you ever look at old, and that's why I always say, you know, it was for protection and medicine and things of that nature. If you ever talk to an old person like my great grandma, what would be considered hoodoo is getting herbs from the ground to help make medicines. What? Or that could be considered a root word too. But you know, you're just getting stuff from the ground when somebody is sick. You're using nature to help have a better life. You're living with it. Now, with anything, it can be used for a nefarious bad purpose. How Christianity does. And you know what? Even Christianity was repackaged because it started off in Ethiopia. And the Ethiopian Bible is a lot larger than ours. But you know, I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole tonight. I've been on here just talking for a while, for almost an hour at this point, I think. So I'm gonna bring it back to the whole entire LA riots thing. I really do think, given the history of America, given the history of the FBI, given the history of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has a very narrow-minded viewpoint of a lot of things, that a lot of people that's doing the destruction are not the people that are doing the protests. They're plants. They're undercovers. And that's why I truly do believe that's what's going on. That's what's telling me that. I'm not saying there's not few bad apples out there. I'm not saying it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But that's all right though. I mean, it's not all right. But that's the only thing you can say is that that's all right. Pawns to a game. Yep. You know, I'm still getting used to this whole entire used to YouTube live stuff. My mouth is starting to get dry. I might get off here soon. And how to navigate this on my phone. Oh man. I hope everybody is doing good tonight though. Thanks for the interaction from the few people that interacted. Maybe Norwood, appreciate you. Oh, don't want to have that down there. I appreciate it. You have a good night if you're leaving. What time is it? Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm about to get out of here too. All right. Again, you guys have a good night. Thank you for watching. If you watched, I'll talk to you later.